Somewhere in the world right now, a piece of metal is sitting behind bulletproof glass, armed guards, climate-controlled rooms, hidden from the public eye. This sword was once held by the most powerful hand on earth, and someone paid millions to own it. Today, we count down the 10 most expensive swords ever sold. Some changed history, some ended empires, some carry secrets no one has fully explained. Are you ready? A sword is not just a weapon. It never was. Throughout history, the sword has been a symbol of power, of authority, of death, and of honor. Kings carried them into battle. Emperors gifted them to generals. Samurai died protecting them. And today, some of the rarest blades in the world sit in private collections, sold at auction for prices that will leave you speechless. We're counting down the top 10 most expensive swords in the world, ranked by their verified sale price or estimated value. Each one has a story, each one carries blood, and each one is worth a fortune. Let's begin. Number 10. The Sword of Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte, a man who once controlled nearly all of Europe, a man so feared that entire nations trembled at the sound of his name. And this was his sword. A gold-hilted saber crafted in 1799, carried by Napoleon during the Italian campaign, a campaign where he crushed his enemies and rewrote the map of Europe in his own image. This sword wasn't just a weapon, it was a declaration of war. In 2007, this blade went to auction at Osannat in France. The room was silent. Collectors leaned forward. The hammer fell at $6.5 million, one of Napoleon's most personal possessions. A piece of history forged in ambition and blood. But we're just getting started. Number 9. The Austrian saber of George Washington. Before he was the first president of the United States, George Washington was a general, a warrior, a man who fought through frozen winters and impossible odds, and he carried a sword. This Austrian-made saber, gifted to Washington, represents the birth of a nation. It passed through generations of the Washington family for over 2 centuries before it ever left private hands. Think about that. A blade that was in the room when history was being made. A sword held by the man who became America. Valued at over $7.2 million, it remains one of the most historically significant American artifacts ever recorded. When you hold that sword, you hold the entire Revolutionary War in your hands. Number 8. Tipu Sultan's personal sword. His enemies called him the Tiger of Mysore. Tipu Sultan, one of the fiercest rulers in Indian history, a man who fought the British Empire with everything he had, refusing to bow, refusing to surrender until his very last breath in 1799. His sword carried that same fire, encrusted with jewels, the blade engraved with verses from the Quran, the hilt shaped like a tiger's head, because Tipu Sultan was the tiger. When the British defeated and killed him at the siege of Seringapatam, they looted his palace. His weapons were taken as trophies of conquest. Centuries later, at a Christie's auction, that sword, stolen from a fallen king, sold for over $7.6 million. Some call it a sale, others call it the last wound of empire. The story doesn't end here. Number 7. The Hampton Court sword. This blade was forged in the ear of Henry VIII, the English court, where politics meant betrayal, where loyalty could get you beheaded. The Hampton Court sword is a ceremonial masterpiece, elaborately decorated with royal insignia, gold, and enamel work, so detailed it looks like a painting frozen in metal. Believed to have been part of the Royal English Armoury during one of the most turbulent periods in British history, this sword represents absolute royal authority. It didn't just sit on a wall. In those days, the sword was the king's will made physical. Valued at over $8 million, this piece has moved between royal estates, private collections, and auction houses, each time reminding the world, some things cannot be owned. They can only be borrowed from history. Number 6. The Gem of the Orient knife. Not every expensive blade is ancient. Sometimes it takes a lifetime to create a legend. The Gem of the Orient was crafted by master bladesmith Buster Wierensky. It took him 10 years to complete. 10 years. The handle and blade are encrusted with 9 emeralds, 153 diamonds, and nearly 28 ounces of 18-karat gold. It was meticulously handcrafted. Every single millimeter was deliberate. This wasn't made for war. It was made to last forever. When it sold for $2.1 million, it became the most expensive handmade knife ever sold. Proof that modern craftsmanship, when pushed to its absolute limit, can rival the legacy of ancient kings. Beauty can be worth more than blood. Number 5. The medieval gold sword of Boamond. The year is 1098. The Crusades are raging. The Holy Land is soaked in blood. Boamond of Taranto, a towering Norman warrior prince, leads his men through the gates of Antioch. His blade cuts through the chaos of one of history's most brutal religious wars. This sword, believed to be from Boamond's era and lineage, is a masterpiece of medieval craftsmanship. The gold pommel, the jeweled guard, the blade etched with sacred crosses. This wasn't just a warrior's sword, it was God's weapon in a man's hand. Estimated at over $14 million, this blade represents the collision of faith, violence, and empire that define the medieval world. Every scratch on that blade is a life. Every dent is a war. And someone out there owns it. Number 4. The sword of Sultan Abdulaziz. At its peak, the Ottoman Empire stretched across 3 continents, from Hungary to North Africa, from Persia to the gates of Vienna, and at the center of it all was the Sultan. Sultan Abdulaziz ruled over this empire in the 19th century, the last era of true Ottoman power. His sword is a work of imperial art. Emeralds, rubies, diamonds, a blade crafted by the finest goldsmiths in Constantinople. This sword wasn't carried into battle, it was worn as a statement, a reminder to every ambassador, every foreign king, every visitor to the Ottoman court. You are standing before the most powerful man on earth. Valued at over $15 million, this blade is the jewel of a vanished empire, a ghost of a world that no longer exists, but the sword remains. Number 3. The Norimitsu Odachi. In the world of swords, nothing is more sacred than the Japanese katana, and no Japanese sword is more legendary than the Norimitsu Odachi. Forged in the 15th century, this sword is 3.77 meters long. Let that sink in. Nearly 4 meters of hand-folded Japanese steel. For centuries, scholars debated, was this actually used in combat? Or was it purely ceremonial? A sword this size would require a giant to wield it. Some say it was offered to the gods. Others say it was carried by a warrior of almost mythical strength. The Norimitsu Odachi sits today in the Bizen Osafune Sword Museum in Japan. It is not for sale. It may never be for sale. But if it were, experts believe no price could contain it. The sword that challenges the laws of human possibility. Number 2. The sword of Ulysses S. Grant. The American Civil War. 600,000 dead, a nation split in two, brother against brother, father against son. At the center of it all stood General Ulysses S. Grant, the man who would end the war. The man who would force Robert E. Lee to surrender. The man who later became the 18th President of the United States. This is his dress sword. Presented to Grant in honor of his service, it is an officer's sword of extraordinary beauty and historical weight. It passed through private hands for over a century before appearing at auction. When it sold for $1.67 million, it became one of the most valuable American military artifacts ever auctioned. But it's not just a sword. It's the weapon carried by the man who saved a union. We are one sword away from the top. Can you feel it? We've seen swords of emperors, swords of generals, swords of warriors who changed the world. But nothing has prepared you for what's coming. The #1 most expensive sword ever documented in history belongs to a ruler so powerful, his name still echoes through centuries. His empire spanned the known world. His sword was not just a weapon. It was the symbol of divine rule on earth. Number 1. The golden sword of Emperor Qianlong. The Qing dynasty, one of the greatest empires in human history. At its peak, it controlled a third of the world's population, and ruling over all of it, Emperor Qianlong, a man who reigned for 60 years, a man who was, by every measure of his time, the most powerful human being alive. This is his personal sword, forged in the 18th century in the imperial workshops of the Forbidden City, pure gold fittings, turquoise and jade inlay, the blade etched with dragon motifs, the symbol of the emperor himself, the symbol of heaven's chosen ruler. This sword was not a battlefield weapon, it was a cosmic declaration. When Emperor Qianlong held this sword, he was not just holding steel, he was holding the mandate of heaven itself. In 2006, at a Christie's auction in Hong Kong, this extraordinary blade sold for $8.16 million, making it the most expensive Chinese imperial sword ever sold at public auction. The buyer, a private collector, identity kept secret. Somewhere in the world tonight, this sword is in a room, silent, still, waiting, as if it knows that empires fall, but legends never die. 10 swords, 10 stories, from the battlefields of Europe to the courts of the Ottoman Empire to the forbidden city of China. Each blade carried the weight of its age. Each one was held by hands that shaped the world, and yet they outlasted every empire, every king, every war. Steel remembers what people forget. History is not written in books alone. Sometimes it's forged. If this documentary moved you, if you felt the weight of history in these blades, then smash that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel. We explore the most powerful, mysterious, and expensive artifacts in human history every single week. Drop in the comments, which sword shocked you the most? And before you go, share this video with someone who loves history, because some stories deserve to be heard.